Thor, I got new tickets for the circus yesterday. Do you want to come?
Yes, Bozo. But you can get that date function checked out because it says tomorrow.
Oh, shit. Then we missed it.
Yes, you better get that date function checked out. Today, we're looking at dates. And if we look at the documentation, you can see that the dates can vary from the first year one up to the first of the first year 2500. But that is not entirely true, as we will see. We also have a operation of dates and integers. So in the documentation here, you can see that you can just add an integer to a date, and you can subtract dates from each other. And that's really nice because it makes it easy to calculate with dates. I'm going to try to see what the maximum date allowed is to verify that it is 2500. And I'm going to check what the lowest date is. And then we're going to have a look at some different dates and see what's going on in the date calculation function. We're going to do some countdown of dates to see the lowest date we can do. And what about negative dates? Minus year 500, what will happen there? We also have these different date formats where you have year, month, date as a military format, but in the States, you usually have month, day, year. And in many parts of Europe, there is a day, month, and year. So switching date and month. We're going to see how you set that using the set attribute date format. You can also set a separator. So you can have any type of separator, any character as a separator, if you like. Then we're going to try to extract the year, month, and day using the left, mid, and right functions. Those are string functions we went through in the string video. And you can easily convert dates to string by just using the string function. And if we look at the code here, you can see that we're actually doing a write to the date directly, but it's converted to a string because this is a string function. Then we have a few other date functions that we're looking at. And there is a date function for isValidDate, which doesn't really behave well on dates assigned with regular date variables because they count as integers and will just switch to another valid date. It's not validating if you're entering like a string, like a name or something. It's validating if the date you entered is correct. And in a regular date variable, you cannot set an incorrect date because any integer will turn into a date, as you will see. So what I had to do to verify that I got an incorrect date set is to use the date time variable and then use the date set day. Then it'll work to set an invalid date. So that's for that. And then we want to lastly look at calculating the difference between two dates. And you use that by creating one date with the apostrophes here. I did the mistake of leaving them out. Then it will just calculate 2001 minus 12 minus 18, which is like 1900 something. And then it will turn into that type of dates and everything gets really weird. So remember to have the quotes when you create a date from a string. And let's dive into the code and have a look. First of all, we want to check out what's happening if we're doing something like this. Then it turns to 1909. But if I write 10, then it's turned into 2010. 50, we're still at 2000. 51, we go back to 1951. This is only happening in the interface with the date forms. So it's a nice thing to be aware of, especially if the users are wondering what's going on. This is the behavior of DataFlex. And I assume that this kind of is rolling. So in 10 years, this will switch on 2016 instead, I guess. Then we have the maximum date that in the documentation said 2500. But when I try to create the max date, I get to 58,794, which is a little bit further ahead. So I think the integer used for dates has gone a little bit larger than previously. And it's actually the 23rd of November is the last valid date. No, this is actually converted into a string. So 22nd of November is the last valid working date. Then I'm going to try to use 0 as a date, which returns nothing. It's a blank string, invalid, so it returns blank value. Then we have 1, which returns 2001, 2. So the 2nd of January 2000. And that turns into an integer of 730501. And if I subtract 1 from that and just put 730,500 into a date, it will return 2000 and the 1st of January. And going below that, we get to the 31st of December 1999. So it seems like you can count below, but it turns into a fairly high integer. So then we try to get the lowest by date, and I'm taking the 2nd of January 2000, subtracting 1, and we get to the 1st of January, and subtracting 1 from the 1st of January gets us to the last December 99. Trying really low dates, we're going for 543. That works fine. But if we only type the year 43, this is turned into 1943. And even lower if we go to 3, that is turned into 2003. So it seems like 100 is the lowest date we can actually set, because otherwise it's converted into a higher date. So again, we're trying the lowest dates from the documentation, and that is turned into 2001, January 1st. And if we have zeros, 01, 01, it turns into 2000, 01, 01. So something is going on here around the year 100. So I'm counting from 99 and then up to 100. So 99 turns into 1999, and 100 stays 100. We can conclude that going down from 100 turns into 99. And when there's something similar going on around the 30s. So when we go from 1930 down to 1929, it turns into 2029. So you see the input is these numbers and the output are these numbers, which kind of makes sense, but this one is turned into those numbers when you assign an integer. So you should probably be aware of this and perhaps use the datetime variable instead when it comes to dates far in the past, or put the dates in strings instead. I also tried some negative values, but they return blank, and if I set a negative year, it will just turn into the positive equivalence of that year. Here you can see we can use the date formats. If we want the year, we can use the leftmost 4 characters, and we get the year. Month, we have the mid, and day, we take the right, so we take the 2. So that depends, of course, of which format you're using, but you can easily switch them around if you need to. Here are some date functions. Get day, date, get day. You get the date is same as the right 2. And then we have these weeks. Get day of week will return the week based on Sunday being the first. Using the date get day of week ISO returns the same, but Monday being the first day of the week. And then you have VSD, where you can pick the first day of the week yourself. You also have the day of year and get month. Then you have this function get week of year and get year of week, which has the ISO and VDS options, which manages if the first week should contain January the 1st or not, or how the dependencies are, and that is different between how it's used in the States and in Europe mostly. And you also have one where you can set it yourself. And here we come to the is valid dates. You see that when I use a regular date, it's valid. If I change it to something else, it will just turn into a valid date far in the future. Even when I use this date set day function, it will just turn into a date in the future and say that it's still valid. And then trying to use a date time variable, that's when I can actually set an invalid date, because this one is more rigid when it comes to dates. So as I said before, if you want to set dates at other times than the regular dates variable can handle, you should probably go for the date time value. And also calculating the diff using the regular date variable is very easy, because it's just turning into an integer. So you can subtract dates from each other, but beware if you're at any of these breaking points where you might run into issues. And that's all I had for you today. If you liked it, I hope you'll subscribe and leave a comment if there's anything I should add or any important thing that I missed, or any questions you might have. And see you next time. Bye bye.